constitutes, or rather enables the consistency, makes livable the very production process. So you see, this is the great achievement of Marx, that as a true materialist, his point was not just this nominalist one, oh, abstractions are out there. No, of course we should fight abstractions, but...
It was to form a party.
Sorry, of?
To form a party.
Of? Sorry, I didn't get the word.
He always said the working class had to be independent of the bourgeoisie and to form a party. And you don't ever say that.
Sorry, please, I didn't understand the last word.
Party. To form a party.
Yeah, but okay, but...
What's your answer to the people in Egypt?
What? Sorry, I don't get it. I've written quite a lot about it, and I don't get it what your point here is. But okay, I'm ready to accept this challenge, and I will now go as far really to annoy you. I will say that are we all aware in what deep, shitty crisis the left is? Listen, till...
People like you.
Thanks very much, yeah. Thanks very much. Okay, I don't have any problem with this. All I'm saying is that I'm not saying you are this, but there is a certain type of orthodox Marxism, you know, always working class party and so on. Now let me put it very aggressively. Let's say I'm not, but if I were to be a member of some mysterious ruling class ideological central committee with a lot of money, where we decide whom to finance to make it sure that nothing will really change. I would finance dogmatic Marxists. I would finance people who claim, you know, working class communism party and so on, who don't want to reflect on what happens. What do I mean by this? Think about what happened in the last decade. Till 3-4 years ago, when we, at least in the developed West, I have no illusions about it, and with all problems, there was at least an illusion, if not the reality of some kind of welfare state, relative prosperity. So the typical attitude of the West was, of the left, even the radical left, was to play a Cassandra, no? Ha, this prosperity is an illusion. You will see, there will be a crisis, and then our moment will come. Well, fuck you. The crisis is here. Show me one concrete, feasible proposal of the radical left what to do. I don't know it. And I'm following it closely around. From Wall Street, I had friends who were for weeks on Tahrir Square in Greece. This is why I admire Syriza. And
You give up.
Sorry? No, I didn't give up. I was in Athens speaking for Syriza. Sorry? But you see, this is why you are not a Marxist. Sorry? The people... What we should tell the people is first to openly admit that the 20th century is over, that we intellectuals should stop bluffing, that we don't have the answers that they expect of us. I deeply distrust these traditional intellectuals who are waiting for the big moment. You know, people are confused, but at some point the real event will happen, working class will raise up with the party, and so on. I mean, I'm not saying the existing order will be going on. Things will be worse and worse, chaos, crisis, and so on. I just doubt about that big event. But again, may I repeat my central point? Precisely today, when there are disorders in the good sense, uprisings here and there, and so on, how completely the left failed in trying to do what it always promised to do. But when there will be a crisis, we will provide, you know, like make a cognitive mapping, this is to be done, and so on. I think that ask yourself, even Syriza, my good friends, I mean, they, not you, Ask yourself, and I was asking them this, what is their real program? And I talked with Tsipras and others for hours. And I can tell you that basically, ultimately, it is, if I may put it very ironically, something like, we need a stronger nation state, but not quite nationalistic one, with which we will not abolish capitalism, it's too blurred that, but somehow just cut off the financial capitalism and make it a little bit better, and so on and so on. Show me one left movement which the only other radical proposal that I know that came from the left is ironically the proposal to save capitalism. Namely, it's called basic rent, citizens' income, or as they call it in Brazil, renta básica, basic rent. And Van Parijs, who grounded it, is very clear. He says capitalism is the only game in town. We have to accept it. I don't agree with it, incidentally. What I'm telling you is that even fanatically supported by Tony Negri and Michael Hart and others, that are we aware that this idea of citizens' income is basically the idea of, as they put it in the United States, eating your cake and have it. That is to say, the last desperate attempt to ground a truly welfare state capitalism. The idea is that through citizens' income, we can keep capitalism's productivity while nonetheless making it much better, independent, the work of workers, and so blah, 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 and so on and so on. I mean, I'm just shocked how things are now, we are approaching a real crisis. And I am not aware, even at the level of debate, are you aware? Please correct me. If you know any left power, not some small sects or whatever. Sorry?
WSWS.org.
Okay, I will not go into the same what I said before. I think that it's, this is the answer I will give you. I think that principled position, like we stick to our can also be the nastiest form of opportunism. Because with your pseudo-radicalism, you know very well that it obliges you to nothing. It just makes it very comfortable position where, without risking any, this is, for me, the typical attitude of at least academic leftists today. You like a revolution, but it must be at least Greece. Even better if it's in Latin America and so on. Revolution must be far away so that it doesn't disturb your life. In other words, I'm seriously asking you, okay, I'm a corrupted guy, I don't do it because of me. Show me the one who is doing some work, in the sense of seriously confronting the problem, preparing the change, and so on and so on. Show it to me. Who is doing it? Socialist Workers' Party or who? No.
National Committee of the Thought, International, WSWS.org. We'll have a discussion with you if you want.
No, sorry, I know all this. Sorry?
Do you know Blaumacher in Greece?
Of course I know them, but I think that...
People's lives here, you know.
Sorry? What?
Maybe now's a good time to actually start questions, so we can take them from
Although,
the floor
okay,
rather than
you
just
should be aware that I didn't even begin with Hegel, But I think, okay, let me give you a little bit more serious, just precisely to this question, Hegelian answer. I agree here with Fred Jameson, who is not exactly a specialist in economy, but nonetheless, and some more serious economists who pointed out that if we want to analyze the situation today, the new situation, the first thing we had to reflect on is the radically changed, much more important role of the unemployed. If in classical Marxist tradition, unemployed were the necessary reserve army, coming and, always there as a pressure and so on and so on. Now we are getting something which nonetheless still recently didn't exist, a class of people who are not only permanently unemployed, but permanently unemployable. You know, like with, for example, the typical example, in Slovenia, in my country, you have thousands of them. You have textile workers working in a factory for 35, 40 years, and then you are out, and you know that you are out forever. Okay, from time to time, some clone of Anthony Giddens comes and tells you, you have now a chance to reinvent yourself, and so on, but you are out. Not only this, we have then, here I agree with Fred Jackson, we have then the whole parts of a state, even countries, so-called rogue countries, Congo, Somalia, and so on, which are in this, as it were, unemployed, excluded position, although, incidentally, this doesn't mean that they are not part of the global capitalism. Congo is a perfect example. It's portrayed in our media, oh, the African heart of darkness, blah, blah. Yeah, a heart of darkness where all mineral production is totally controlled by, and so on and so on. So what I'm saying is that, another thing, we not only have permanently unemployed and whole nations, regions, which are in a way out, we also have something that probably you here are. People who are young and already, it is clear to them that more or less they are in advance unemployable. You know, you study, you are educated for something, and you know in advance that it will be almost impossible to get a job which will be adequate to you, and so on and so on. So the first gesture for me, it's crucial, is to somehow, and this is well beyond Marx, extend the notion of exploitation and consequently of the proletarian position to include this also. You are not only, crazy as it may sound, you are not only exploited if you work and the capitalist takes the surplus value. You are in a way no less exploited because you are totally thwarted in your productive identity if you even paradoxically cannot enter the game of exploitation. The second thing that makes me really sad, maybe you in the UK, without irony, are here a little bit better, but I observe a tendency again and again in many countries, from France to my own, Slovenia, and so on, something which really makes me sad. There was a strike in Slovenia about half a year ago. And although I formally supported it, I expressed some doubts. Of course, there were leftists who claim, you see, he's a traitor. No, I will tell you why. In Slovenia, we have, let's call it naively, the real working class. Workers in textile, mining, and so on. They don't even dare to strike. They are so afraid, you know. And how strike itself is becoming a privilege of what I call salaried bourgeoisie, you know, of those privileged state. Who dares to strike in my own country? Judges, top policemen, doctors, and so on. They know, state administration, they know they have something which is already a privilege today, a guaranteed state job. And this is why, especially if they are in a position of, let's call it, social blackmail, like you know, everyone is afraid, fuck it, doctors are on strike, what happens if I am in trouble, and so on and so on. And this is, I think, a big problem. We have strikes which are not proletarian strikes, but strikes whose basic social demand is precisely, we want to retain our position above working class. You know, we want to avoid proletarization, to becoming like them. It was so brutally clear in Slovenia, with all their protests, university teacher, oh, horrible, how can I survive with 2,000 euros per month, and so on and so on. You know, like, nobody even mentioned the invisible thousands of workers who, they are so desperate that typically they did strike in some companies, but you know what was their strike for? For bankruptcy. Because they discovered that if the company proclaims bankruptcy, they will be at least